Live, I'm Danny Laurel.
And I'm Jess De Los Santos. Here are the biggest stories to kickstart this trading day, with PSE President Ramon Monzon saying foreign investors are waiting to see who the members of the Marcos economic team will be.
He tells more of that on Bloomberg Markets Asia. Let's listen in.
It's going to be tough. I mean, we have a lot of macroeconomic problems, as you know. Our foreign debt has reached more than 60% for GDP, from just below 40% pre-pandemic. We need to service a debt of more than 12 trillion pesos. So, I mean, the new economic team has a lot of things, a lot of hard work in front of them. And basically, I think they really need to look at, finding a new revenue stream. We can't be, sustaining this economy with just what we have now with increased taxes. We've got to look for a new revenue stream.
How optimistic are you? And linked to that, can that reversal in capital outflows be stopped, be reversed?
Well, I think for the foreign investors, there will be a short wait and see who the economic team will be. I think that's the most important thing, the change of administration. Not so much as the president, as who the economic team is, as far as business is concerned, or the stock exchange for that matter. But, the new administration has a lot of things, going for it, okay? In terms of new legislation.
Now, here's an update on the partial unofficial count. As of 9:02 a.m., you have 98.23% of election returns already transmitted based on this unofficial tally. Again, you still have Ferdinand Marcos Jr. leading the pack here with 31 million votes so far, followed by Vice President Leni Robredo with 14.8 million. Manny Pacquiao coming in third with 3.6 million of the votes so far. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno in the fourth spot with 1.9 million votes, followed by Ping Lacson with 881,000. Now, all the other candidates from Faisal Mangudadato, Ernie Abella, Leody de Guzman, Norberto Gonzales, and Jose Montemayor securing less than 300 votes so far as of the latest count. All right, Dan, the local bourse slumped at the reopen the day after the election results started illustrating a clear winner, but it did come amid a global equities rut. What are analysts saying really caused that sell-off, and what are they watching out for?
All right, Jess. Well, as you mentioned, a big slump. Yesterday, we were down by as much as 3.1%. Foreigners had sold out 1.1 billion pesos worth, but we were already seeing selling weeks before the elections. And as you mentioned, it is very hard to separate the domestic issues of the election results with the global equity rout. As you mentioned, that is according to Regina Caps Luis Lumlingan. We had him on our show yesterday, and he was saying mahirap lang talaga kasi the rest of the world was in a sell-off. However, we were one of the worst performing in Asia. Now, we do have AAA equities, as Matt Cabangon saying to Nikkei Asia that it was the jitters of who will be in the economic team. That was the most concerning for investors. And you can see on my terminal here, our index continuing to slide. So it's down by 0.7%. And just, I have to highlight that this comes amid the rest of Asia and even Wall Street steadying already overnight. So we're still on that downward trend. And in fact, related to what the president of the PSE, Ramon Monzon, said, there's a lot of issues concerning analysts. We can run a few of those quoters here. Vic Veloso had already mentioned you can't just cure this with taxes. He's, of course, the president of PNB. But take a look at what Alex Holmes of Capital Economics has said. Marcos may also be keen to pursue closer ties with China to benefit from low interest loans. So there's a lot of watching out on what's going to be happening with our relationship with China. We also have Tamara Mast Henderson over at Bloomberg Economics saying Marcos must persuade investors that he won't repeat his father's mismanagement, and she even calls this a tall order. And you could see other quotes here that have been mentioned. An economist at Citigroup saying ensuring confidence among the investor community is of utmost need here. So a lot of issues still on the table for all of these analysts watching our market. And to discuss even more about this, we have with us on the show just Japheth Tantiangco of PhilStocks. Hi, Japheth, and welcome.
Hello, Ma'am Danny, and thank you very much for inviting me on your show.
All right, Japheth, I'm just going to show our viewers here. Mining and oil, I guess this is the first thing that we're going to be watching out for. It's the only one jumping right now by 2%. This as the rest of the sectors continue to be in the red. Quick feel of the markets amid all of these election results that are, of course, pointing towards a landslide victory for BBM.
Okay, first for the general market, what we have to know is before even the results of the general election came out, the market already had a bearish bias to begin with. If you're going to look at its charts, first chart wise, its 50-day exponential moving average has already crossed below its 200-day counterpart. So this is a death cross, a bearish signal, which signals a possible downtrend in the medium to long term. You look at the macroeconomic picture, we also have a lot of headwinds. So first and foremost, you have offshore concerns. This includes the rising rates in the United States amid the aggressive monetary policy stance of the Federal Reserve. You have the Russia-Ukraine war and its impact on the global economy, particularly on commodity prices. And you have China. China's a weakening economy because of its COVID-19 situation and its impact on the Philippines. You shift here onshore. You have inflation concerns. Inflation has been rising from 3% to 4%, and then by April, it already breached the government's target. It went up to 4.9%. Now you add the elections. Elections, there are some uncertainties related to it, and this is what investors are trying to digest right now. First and foremost, you have uncertainties with respect to the reception of the general public. How will the general public accept the results that are about to come, and especially the final results that are about to come? If you're going to see it right now on the ground, we're already seeing some resistances. So this is something that investors will be watching out for. They will be watching out for the transition of power. Is it going to be a smooth or is it going to be a rough transition of power? And finally, investors, of course, would want to watch out. Of course, there are still uncertainties with respect to the economic policies of the incoming administration. So this is something that investors are,
Okay.
would want clarity for. In particular, policies on how to sustain economic recovery, how to slow down price increases, how to fix the loopholes in the labor market, and of course, how to bring national debt to more manageable levels. So these are the things that investors.
Japheth, but in the short term, are you expecting this to even out or at least, recover back to certain levels as, of course, hopefully there will be some unveiling of the economic team, of the cabinet members. Normally, would you expect that this is actually a buying opportunity, as some have been mentioning, and that this will be leveling off? Or are you expecting a prolonged uncertainty to be jittering the index?
It will depend. It will depend on the developments moving forward. In particular, once we have already shifted to the new administration. Okay, so as mentioned, investors will be watching out for the economic policies. What policies in particular will address our current macroeconomic concerns, sustain economic recovery, cooling down price increases, labor market loopholes, debt, how to bring it to more manageable levels. So that's what investors will be watching out for. Are we going to see a continuity of the policies of the current administration, the third administration? Are we going to see more of it, or are we going to see a change? Of course, and yes, the economic team who will be the economic team of the next administration. This is something that investors are also going to be watching out for. So
Okay.
if we see clarity in this, then yes, there's the possibility that the market will climb back up again. For now, the levels that we are seeing, or the range that we are seeing, support is at 6,100. And the resistance is at 6,600 to 6,700.
Okay.
If we see clarity, then the market may at least climb back up to 6,667.
All right, Japheth, let's look at a couple of stocks that had jumped yesterday. I'm talking about the Marcos-related stocks. Just for our viewers to see, no, in the past 3 days, Araneta Properties up by 64%. 64%. PhilWeb is actually down today, but it was also surging double digits yesterday. Also, Prime Media, which is owned by Romualdez, was up by 2.5% today. Again, double-digit surge yesterday, above 20%. So, you know, a few of these Marcos-related stocks, tell us, is this knee-jerk reaction? Is there a fundamental reason that people are buying into this? Do you believe that the Marcos administration might actually spill over into the profits of these firms?
To be honest, we haven't looked into the fundamentals of those firms. Most likely, this is because of speculation, and of course, adding into it perhaps positive sentiment towards these stocks, as positive spillovers coming from if ever Bongbong Marcos does win the presidency, then its presidency may have a positive impact on these stocks. So that's what we're seeing right now.
Okay, and finally, just a quick run through on the earnings that have been released. You've got Semirara, 544% up now to 8 billion pesos, and DMCI on the back of that also jumping 11.3 billion pesos in the first quarter net income compared to 4.3 billion pesos. A-REIT up 16%, SM Prime up 14%. Does this tell you that regardless of who is in power, regardless of the election results, that there are actually robust industries here and there are robust results for the first quarter at least?
Well, with respect to corporate earnings, so far first quarter results have been satisfactory, and first quarter results have been satisfactory. So the question right now is moving forward. Okay, if the next administration, how it's going to affect corporate results. If the upcoming administration will be able to sustain the economic recovery momentum that we have right now, if it will set in the right policies. Well, right now the economy, it's as mentioned, it's still in its recovery. We're still seeing
Okay.
a strong growth momentum. It's just that we're having problems, macroeconomic concerns, in particular prices, so the likes of inflation. So if the next administration will be able to address those, smoothen it out for our firms, then we expect the robust corporate results to continue. So that's what we're seeing.
All right, so Semirara trading at 28 pesos and 30 centavos. That's a 4.4% jump amid the more than 500% jump in first quarter earnings. Thank you so much, Japheth Tantiangco of PhilStocks.
You're very much welcome.
Pausing for a quick break, coming right up. Business groups and foreign chambers lay down their wish list to the incoming Marcos administration. More of that and other stories when Business World Live returns. Stay with us. And you're still watching Business World Live here on One News. I'm Jess De Los Santos.
And I'm Danny Laurel. Now, business groups have outlined policy reform priorities they wish to see under the incoming Marcos administration.
Now, these include measures aiming to attract more foreign investments, assist small businesses hit by the pandemic, and create more jobs. The European Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, or ECCP, is urging the country's incoming leaders to build on the momentum of previous administrations. The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or PCCI, meanwhile, said that the next administration should provide financial assistance and lighten compliance requirements for MSMEs. However, PCCI President George Barcelon admits that Marcos Jr. will face several challenges, such as high debt and accelerating inflation amid the pandemic and the war in Ukraine. The British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, meanwhile, said that it is looking for a continuity in terms of policy direction. Now, to find out what he thinks should be prioritized by the incoming administration, we have on the show political economist and Business World columnist Calixto Chiquiamco. Sir Toti, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
All right, sir. Now, if the unofficial tally holds true, then we're set for another Marcos presidency. Now, based on his work experience and what he has laid down so far since the campaign period started, how confident are you that Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has the capacity to actually help to handle rather the economy that's still, trying to recover from the pandemic?
Well, I think the recent election is a vote for continuity. So I think what he will do is really continue the policies of President Duterte. Again, remember, this was him uniting with Sara Duterte. So I think this will be a team that will be focused on continuing the policies of President Duterte, which is along the lines of being pro-business and also for liberalizing parts of the economy.
Okay, sir, on the back of that, which policies do you believe or do you agree with in terms of what President Duterte had done in the sense of, during the pandemic response, for instance, there was a lot of fiscal conservatism, to be able to maintain our ratings. There was a lot of monetary policy that was doing the heavy lifting here to ease the interest rates, sir. And also, just the Build program, funding that with twin deficits. Are these things that he needs to continue as he moves into office?
Well, yes, of course. On hindsight, the fiscal conservatism of the administration is proven to be correct. So I think he will continue to do that. Although, of course, the immediate challenge is how to meet our fiscal obligations, given the large debt that we incurred due to the pandemic. So I think so he will have to focus on increasing revenues and making sure that the expenditures are more efficient.
Sir, how should he increase revenues? We had President and CEO of Vic Veloso over in Bloomberg TV mentioning it's going to be very difficult to pay down this debt. It's 60+% already to GDP compared to pre-pandemic levels. Even Finance Secretary Dominguez said it's going to take 6 years, 5 to 6 years of 6% growth just to pay down this debt. Vic Veloso mentioned taxation might not be the answer here. The government might need to sell assets. What's the solution here, sir?
Well, I think there's still some legislation that still has to be passed. If it's not passed in the current Congress, then they should pass it in the next Congress, which is Train 3 and Train 4. This is, of course, the real property valuation bill and the tax, I think, on financial instruments. So that's something that they should do. And then the other thing is, aside from, of course, offloading some government assets, I think that they should really think about PPP as a way to move the infrastructure program forward without the government incurring additional debts or additional expenditures. So I think they have to make the PP program attractive for investors to come in. There's still a lot of capital that can be harnessed to be able to address our infrastructure needs.
Okay. Now, Go ahead, Ann.
No, so I wanted to ask you, sir, is this achievable within 6 years?
Oh yes, it's quite achievable. Uh, and especially if we try to grow out of the debt. If we grow at 6% or even more, I think we can easily grow out of the debt. No, and at the same time, they could look at other additional revenue sources like sort of a tax on digital transactions. No, a lot of e-commerce transactions, especially from abroad, are not being taxed.
Okay, now talking about investments here, of course, that would also be hinged on foreign relations here. Earlier, you were saying that a vote for Marcos is expected to be more a vote for policy continuity. Does that also apply to foreign relations here? Do you expect that that pivot to China to continue, and do you expect a weakening relationship as well with the U.S. when it comes to a Marcos presidency?
I think it's mischaracterized. That the Duterte's policy is pro-China and anti-US. It is actually quite balanced. It's a pragmatic foreign policy. If you look at the record, President Duterte extended the visiting forces agreement, and very recently during the vote in the UN to expel Russia from the Human Rights Council, the Philippines is the only one in Asia that actually voted yes in alignment with the United States. So I think this is a mischaracterization. It's that the policy is anti-China. It is I think, a balanced and pragmatic foreign policy. And I think, Bongbong Marcos will continue such policy.
Sir, what about the legalities with relation to Marcos and the U.S.? As we understand, I don't even think is he allowed to travel to the
There are
United
some
States.
certain,
There are certain issues, limitations, hindering him from even going there, sir.
How's that going to affect our ties with the U.S.?
Well, I am not a lawyer, so I don't know whether he will still be allowed. Well, I'm sure as a head of state, he will be allowed by the U.S. The U.S. needs the Philippines more than anything, especially in its confrontation with China. No, so in fact, geopolitically, we're in a very strong position for a number of reasons. No, one is that the globalization is taking place. So I think the U.S. wants trusted partners in terms of manufacturing. So they'll be moving out their trade alliances away from China toward friendlier countries like the Philippines. Secondly, of course, the other is, of course, the huge demand for minerals now, especially with the shift toward electric vehicles. No, and the Philippines is the fifth most mineralized country in the world. So, for example, nickel is quite important to electric vehicles, and we are the second biggest nickel producer in the world. So, the Philippines is in a favorable geographical position. Finally, the Philippines has a very young population, whereas the rest in Asia, a number like South Korea, China, and Japan are shrinking. Their populations are shrinking. So they will have a very difficult time. I think so. In the sense, the Philippines could be for example, a Mexico to Japan in terms of providing the young workforce that they need.
Okay, lastly now, Sir Toti, there are some analysts here who are fearing that a Marcos presidency might actually worsen cases of corruption and nepotism. Do you share that sentiment, and what should Marcos do to address such concerns, and how might that impact business and investment confidence?
Well, I think corruption has been there since before, and I don't think it will disappear overnight. In fact, if you examine the history of even China and even the United States in the 19th century, corruption dug them during their high growth years. Just even look at Xi Jinping. He assumed power on the back of an anti-corruption campaign. So I think, but this will not, derail the trajectory of the Philippine economic momentum. I think that's again as feared that this will be constraint to the Philippine economic growth story.
All right, so let's see whether status quo might work this time around for the Philippine economy. Thank you, Calixto Chiquiamco. He is, of course, the political economist and Businessworld columnist, for joining us this morning, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And that's a first look into the business today this Wednesday, May 11, 2022. Join us again tomorrow at exactly 9:30 a.m. You can also catch us on Signal Play. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News Live anytime, anywhere. I'm Jess De Los Santos.
And I'm Danny Laurel. Mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. Thank you for watching. We are One News.